Again, welcome to RCOS. So, Dave and I will be talking about the past, and Dave will be talking about the future, the forms, and various other things that are written. So, founded in 2000, this is a history. If you did not know, it was made possible by a generous donation by Sean O'Sullivan, class of 1985, $2 million donation in 2006 he donated. So the leadership was 2007 to 10, two of us, and then 2010 to 2013, I was the sole person. 2013, Dave Goldschmidt joined. And after Goldschmidt joined, we gained momentum. I think that all we need is young folks joining and push us further. And there is a significant enrollment increase from 2013 to 2014. When I ran my philosophy when the RCOS was started is, we operated in stealth mode. Nobody knew about RCOS. And my philosophy was, if we fail, nobody will complain. Nobody knows about RCOS. If we fail, that's okay. But then slowly, when it became more successful, people begin to notice, and then it succeeded mainly because of the students. It is outstanding work. I will show you what the students have achieved, past and present. So the mission was to provide a creative and intellectual and entrepreneurial outlet for students to use the latest open source platforms, develop applications that solve societal problems. That is the general theme. This is what Sean O'Sullivan said. This is why I'm giving you $2 million. You do whatever you do. So when we started, the state of the art was we used Google Code. We used OLPC platform. If you do not know what OLPC is, one laptop per child. And we used all the things that were vogue in 2007. And so far, we have around the total number of students they have gone through this program. This must be around now maybe 1,200 to 1,300 students and around 500 projects. And you can see the spike. This is the number of students. So it's all around 20, 30, and then suddenly shot up last year. And the number of projects, the same way. So usually it is, the student projects is 330 per semester, but now it is more popular. And it is, what we find is the RCOS projects are really beneficial to students, and the employees also feel that they are beneficial to the students. And it is also beneficial to the students and also beneficial to them. So that's why they like the RCOS students. The flip side is, so because there are so many students, we have to make sure that all of you are capable of writing good open source projects. So it is very imperative for the welfare of RCOS. So when we started, we had an open source software course which ran for nearly 5-6 years. Now we are thinking of an alternate course, and this semester will be the trial run for that. And the lead mentors will tell what the course content will be. And this semester it will be a trial run. Next semester the course will be offered. So this will be offered every semester, so to give you the rudiments of open source, what open source software, writing in open source software entails. And probably you haven't, if you're new, then you should also worry about software licensing, patents, etc. So the person from, there are also many companies around this area which does lots of interesting open source, both software and hardware. Software is Kitware. It was founded by 3 RPA alumni. And we have open source hardware. Joran is doing open source hardware. So this is what I'm going to tell you, the achievements. I take pride, but because these are all done by the students. Those of you who've seen the concerto was done under RCOS, co-scheduler ROCs. This was done with UPE and RCOS. YACS was done by under RCOS. So the fastest Firefox plugin, this was done by a freshman when he was at RCOS, and then it had 1 million downloads. Observatory, which is what we use for a project dashboard. It is also adapted at different places. Mobile notifier, Peter Hedges did it as this project during his junior year, and then it had lots of downloads. Then he went to Apple. Then iPhone App Entrepreneur book. This book has lots of quote from one of the students, and RPA shuttle track. This was done by Brian McKenzie. Again, this is adopted, and people are continuing with this. These GNOME presentations. This was done by two different group of students, and then we combined their efforts, and then it is for the slide presentations. Hackathon. So they keep winning in hackathons, different things. This is a New York State hackathon. I thought RCOS can steal credit from what the work they did, but then one of the lead mentors said that is unfair, you shouldn't take it, and so he didn't put it. Okay, oh, this is another one, is Kaggle competition. Those of you who have heard of Kaggle competition, the number one is ProtoML, is an RCOS project. I think won the cost effect pass, it won the first prize. So when he was doing his senior project, when he was doing his this project, it is an RCOS project, it came in 50th or so in one of the Kaggle competitions. I said it's a good one, but he said no, it's not good, it's not good. He feel ashamed of what he did, but then I encouraged him. I do not know whether my encouragement helped or not, but he won first prize in the next cost effect pass competition. And there are a couple of current projects which I should mention, Dynamo EO and CS Homework Server. These are all current projects which were done last year. They did a great thing. These are all the past successes, and I will let Jane talk about.
Thank you, Moy. Yeah, so to maybe finish up these slides, and I have some other general comments. So one thing that we've seen in RCOS over, especially the past few semesters with the kind of sharp spikes in growth, has been a number of projects tend to sort of die at the end of the semester, right? Students graduate. A number of those projects you saw as our sort of success stories, those students graduate, those projects, there's not a lot or any work going on those projects. So that's one thing which we want to be more maybe aware of moving forward, and maybe either avoid those types of projects if they really don't go anywhere, or look like this week, next week, that they're not going to go anywhere. That's maybe the last bullet item there. But also in terms of the whole 15 or so weeks, making sure that projects don't die at the end. If folks are graduating in this room, and those projects live on with other members, over the summer, next year, and so on. But that said, I'm sure you have heard Morthy say in the past that we don't really have many failures, though, right? These projects that we have, I'm going to steal your line, Morthy, the batting average is roughly 300, right? 3 out of 10 projects really maybe succeed, whatever that means. So don't be afraid of failure. That's one key thing. Maybe the mentors said that already before I walked in. Don't be afraid of failure, right? So the projects that are considered failures, so to speak, you're learning a lot from those experiences in this over the 15 weeks over the semester, and also as you're presenting. You present, here's what we found, here's what didn't work. Everyone in the room is learning as well. So don't be afraid of failure. That's kind of one key thing. But at the same time, we want to find projects that we can keep moving on from semester to semester and keep adding to. In general, we have a number of goals overall. This is probably just a subset. There's certainly more student involvement. Well, then again, this room is full. Maybe we can check that one off. But definitely more student involvement has been a goal, and obviously we've had that tremendous growth. The second bullet item goes back to what maybe I said a moment ago: increased focus on producing really usable software, stuff that maybe is really going to not just be used necessarily in the RPI community or a very focused community, but out beyond the walls of RPI. So that's another thing which not all projects maybe fit that, but that's another thing maybe to be cognizant of as you're putting together project ideas and figuring out what to do specifically on various projects. One thing which should be something you're thinking about for proposal and so on is who's your audience, who are your users, what types of users are you anticipating. So that kind of goes along with that bullet item there. Kind of the largest goal we have, maybe obviously, is sustainability. How do we keep this center going, right? It's probably no secret that the money we have is going to run out at the end of this semester. So for those of you in the room who are going to get a stipend this semester, that's going to empty the RCOS fund out probably completely by the end of the semester. So I guess that's sort of the second bullet item in there, funding and funding sources. And over the course of really last semester, Chuck Stewart, the head of our department, computer science, Kurt Brenneman, who's now no longer the acting dean, but the actual dean of the School of Science, they've both kind of been heavily involved, as well as a number of other folks, in terms of figuring out, okay, how do we get this funding? The easy part is that we have Red Hat and various companies knocking at our door, right? So a lot of folks not in the room who have been in RCOS, they graduate, they have great jobs, and open source comes to mind or sort of shows up where they're working, and they say, hey, we should go back to RPI, go back to RCOS. So we have people knocking on our door. We've had people knocking on our door for a while saying, let us help. How can we support RCOS? Which is very promising. The tricky part might be, I guess I'm going on film on saying this, the red tape around here at RPI. So getting through all the hurdles to make sure that we get, I guess, everything set up the way it needs to be. And I'm not really an expert in terms of what that means, which is why Chuck and Kurt and others are getting involved and have gotten involved. In general, sustainability, visibility, and publicity. We've had a lot of good publicity. The Alumni magazine featured RCOS, I forget when, last fall at some point. Been in other publications even as well. We want to keep that going, certainly. So successful projects, success of the program in general. Faculty involvement. That's something we've struggled with, partly because we don't know how to have faculty who are working, diligently and 24/7 on their own stuff. How do we get some of them to do some RCOS stuff? So that's not easy from an administrative perspective. So I'm not sure how much success we'll have there. But nonetheless, there are a few projects which are from other faculty, driven by other faculty members, and they are involved, which is very good. And then also to sustain this, we've snuck this into the curriculum in computer science, as some of you may know. So one of the capstone projects within computer science now, if you're CSP, is you can do RCOS as a capstone. And we're still sort of really defining what that means in detail. But that essentially comes down to doing multiple semesters of RCOS, doing something great in RCOS, sort of mentoring, actually producing and publishing, putting out into the world some usable software, and so on. So we're maybe further defining that, but we really want to make sure that this isn't just a side thing from computer science majors, for example, to really be part of the curriculum. The last bullet item, in general, we want to make sure, everyone at RPI, or just the community in general, that we're helping to support that community. I think this might be the last slide. I do have some other notes I want to talk about, too, related to all this. As I mentioned, and again, it's no secret, we are running out of money. right? That $2 million initial gift. We're running out of that money at the end of this semester. I mentioned Red Hat a moment ago. That's really been the company we've most been in contact with last semester, and that looks very, very promising. Vistaprint, IBM, a few others that are just sitting in my email and so on have been contacting us. So we're trying to sort of figure out what's kind of the streamlined way to communicate and figure out with those companies and so on how to get the support. It's not just a matter of handing over a bunch of money. It's a matter of they want to know where the money's going to go and how it's going to be structured. And they have ideas for how to structure it, even change RCOS. So there's some, you know, I guess you might call it negotiation in some sense that goes on. So we do have a lot of promise there. Nothing's been officially confirmed yet. And the goal certainly is to have that in place for the summer. But we don't know yet. Hopefully we'll have a very good announcement during the semester. The last part at the bottom is kind of, you know, we don't know what this will, what kind of impact this will have on RCOS. If it will change the way we look at projects. We might have different types of projects. Projects that companies are interested in funding. So sponsored projects. Projects that are more, we use the word serendipitous, right? Just throwing ideas around, which is what RCOS is largely about. So unsponsored projects, and we still fund those somehow. Just, you know, you're in your playground, so to speak, and building cool stuff. We don't want to lose that aspect of RCOS by any means. So there are some challenges and work to be done here. Like I said, Chuck Stewart, Kurt Brenneman, others are really leading that, and Morgan and I are helping to kind of give the information and ideas and so on to those folks. Let's see, the other kinds of odds and ends I wanted to talk about. The key thing I always like to say is that to also remember kind of the mission statement. I know Morgan had it on the slides here and talked about it briefly. But the underlying goal of these projects, what we're doing is the betterment of society. That was Sean O'Sullivan's idea. That was his vision when he first gave this gift of $2 million to us. So definitely want to keep that in mind. What is your audience, and also how is this going to improve their lives or just better society, right? And a lot of our projects that you've seen, or as you've seen, have certainly bettered the betterment of the RPI community. So that's also something I want to mention. I know there's been email about this project and carrying this forward, so I really do want to hopefully see that move forward. And hopefully, this is just some kind of one of my to-do list items that I want to get done this semester finally, is tie this in somehow better with the registrar system, all of those systems, right? Those very closed systems. But anyways, I'm excited that some folks are planning to work on this project here. Related to plan of study, all those various kinds of academic things. The other stuff I want to get into would be, let's see if that, would be the paperwork side. So in general, my role this semester, I will be here on most Tuesdays, probably all the Tuesdays just about, for our meetings. I think the plan is still to have small meetings on Tuesdays, so you'll probably see me floating around at various meetings. On Fridays, the big meeting will be in here, right? I will rarely be here on Fridays, but sometimes I will. Probably with my kids, some of you have seen them join RCOS meetings in the past. So my role this semester is going to largely be, first of all, at the beginning, dealing with all the paperwork. Some of you already know what that means. Every single one of you in the room who's going to be an RCOS here, that's a bunch of paperwork for each of you, which is a pain. There's a few forms which I want to just briefly point out, but I don't want anyone to really start filling them out yet. What I want to do is just list out what you're going to need to do, and then I'm going to provide a resource, either just instructions or maybe even a video thing to show how to do it. Because the biggest problem we have in the past is, based on the volume of forms that need to be filled out, there's always mistakes on it, and go back and forth, and it just is kind of crazy making. So, real quick on the RCOS. On the RCOS site, looks okay up here. You will find this URP application. Don't go there yet, don't fill it out yet. Like I said, I want to provide detailed instructions how to do that so we avoid all the various rewriting, redoing of that as we've done in the past. But very briefly, I'll tell you, this form does need to be filled out electronically. Don't put any pen on this form when you print it out, only just sign it, that's it. So everything will be filled out electronically. And in the instructions, I'll describe how to fill out all of these top fields. And then there's going to be only a little bit of information that goes in the middle section here. You choose one of those options, doing it for credit, doing it for pay, or just doing it for the experience, which means you're just here participating and not getting any credit, not getting any pay. If it hasn't already been said, one of the rules that you, I think, are aware of from my emails in the past is that you can't do it, you can't do RCOS for pay until you actually do RCOS for credit one semester. Do it for 3 or 4 credits a semester. So if you're new to RCOS, you can fill out that first checkbox, and I'll give you, again, the details to fill in the rest of that. This is all due very quickly, which is kind of a challenge that we face because a lot of you are figuring out which project are you going to work on. And that information goes in the upper right over here. The goal is to have all this in early next week, believe it or not. And then for those of you doing it for credit, you need to have an additional form in by the end of next week. That's the add deadline. So this, if you're doing it for credit, it's an independent study. For your elective credits, you have to actually add those before the add deadline. So I'll get the instructions and so on out to you definitely by the end of this week, hopefully by about Thursday or so. Definitely by the end of the week, and that should hopefully get you so you're able to fill all this out, do all the paperwork, and Monday, Tuesday be able to deliver it to me for the Northie. The other thing about this form is that you'll just attach your proposal that you've been working on, so that'll be also in the instructions. Let's see if I can track down the other bit of administrative information we're going to need. I will provide, again, more details about this, but there is a relatively new form here. If you're going to do RCOS for credit, the instructions will tell you to grab this form, Form 4UR. For undergraduate research, independent study, you're going to get credits out of this. Again, I'll tell you in detail how to fill this out. There's a bunch of fields to fill in, you print it out, and so on. I'll eventually sign it. But I'll collect these and I'm going to get them to the registrar. So you don't need to worry about hiking down there to hand this stuff in. One thing, if you'll bear with me just for 1 second. I do have a Google Doc that I should have shared, but I didn't. This is going very slow. So I tell you what, rather than tracking it down, let me just say there will be an attachment to this, and I'll circulate that to everyone. What it will describe is what the expectations are in terms of just logistics. How many times you need to present, how many blog updates, those kinds of things will be in this document. So it'll give you kind of the nitty-gritty, what you need to do over the semester. So stay tuned for that. I'll leave it at that right now. Just hand it back to you guys now.